Welcome to the Sacred Designer Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Martin, kitchen and bath designer, entrepreneur, artist, and creative soul behind the Kitchen and Bath Digest. This is a show where we weave soulful design into every space and redefine what it means to create with intention. Here we don't just create beautiful homes, we design from the heart, embracing both the practical and spiritual. By pressing play, you'll be joining a community that creates not just for function, but for a sense of sacred space and personal alignment. On this podcast, you will learn to merge the art of design with soulful living, turning every remodeling project into a journey of self-expression and holistic beauty. This isn't just about kitchens and bathrooms, it's about embracing design as a path to a richer, more beautiful life. So let's step into this sacred designer together and create spaces that resonate with your soul. Welcome to the Sacred Designer Podcast. If you're new here, we're going to talk about the intersection of home and soul and how the spaces we create live that are never just aesthetic or functional, but they're about energy, intention, and transformation. I sit down with designers, organizers, healers, and space holders who understand our homes are mirrors. And when we shift our spaces, we shift our lives, whether you're remodeling your kitchen, or you're organizing your home, rearranging a closet, you're in the right place to believe that it's deeper than it actually looks. What do presidential ballrooms, libraries, and living rooms, or even kitchens for that matter, teach you about hiring a pro for your remodel? Well, I'm going to dive a little bit into both of those and kind of take a look at things that you need to watch out for. So every remodel is a leadership test in disguise when it comes to construction. And although you need to choose an aesthetic that dazzles you, but it also needs to have a discipline, and you need to choose with, a vision and vigor. So the last few months, we've been watching two headline projects, and both of them have a deep contrast, but are on full display. For example, the White House Ballroom that's being built, and they've launched with demolition in the last couple weeks here. And they demoed the historic East Wing. Sad, but you know what? I think change is a good thing. And then there's the long-running Obama Presidency Center in Chicago, which, is a feat and very interesting architecture. And they're still wrestling with budget and schedule creeps for years to come. Although they do say that it might be done in 2026. What are your thoughts? They're both lightning rods, and they're both instructive, and they both have spotlights on the truth that you as a homeowner can't ignore. And the successful project doesn't hinge on the inspired idea alone, but it lives and dies in the experience of someone that you're dealing with who does design. You need to have tight project management, and you need to have a contractor that executes. You need to be able to trust the team that you hire. So two projects, one pattern. When scope outruns the structure is really kind of the basis of this spot. And the White House crews, they began tearing down the East Wing in the facade and making room for 90,000 square foot ballroom. And it was initially pitched for $200 million, and now it's $250 million. And, things come up and you need to really at least kind of figure in a 20% wiggle room. It seems a little excessive, but the reality is that things come up. And sometimes you have to wait a little bit longer, you have to eat out, all those types of things. And you need to put that aside. So the immediate reality is that there's a scope expansion. There's moving targets and there's a flurry of stakeholders and reacting to decisions. And you have to make those decisions at speed to keep things moving along because time is money. But then in the contrast, there in Chicago, Obama's Presidency Center broke ground in the fanfare in Jackson Park. And they encountered slow motion dragging remodeling. And, they also inquired lawsuits, reviews, community concerns, rising costs, revised timelines, and the price tag also swelled beyond early expectations. And with the opening soon kind of keeps getting nudged farther. But these are all things that, okay, some might have been unforeseen, but you kind of have to do the runaround and do a lot of, just initial reviewing and research to make sure that you don't run into these kind of things. So for example, when you're doing a remodel yourself,
you need to make sure that you've done your diligence. You need to make sure that this contractor knows what they're doing. You need to look at reviews. You need to make Excel sheets. You need to order all those things. You need to have them all in place. If you don't have those things done, you're going to run into a vision that just is bad and it doesn't work. And it just, it has relentless delivery mechanics that become expensive and risky and brittle. So neither of these projects are really amateur, but in the sense of lacking professionals on the payroll, really, to be honest. It's just when the leadership treats scope as a statement rather than a contract, it becomes a big problem. And when approvals are assumptions and when risks registers as afterthoughts, when cost and design and timeline management are just not a lockstep, it's bad. So the public sees politics, but I see a builder process gap, really, in my opinion. So how can this translate for you as a homeowner in your remodel? You need these 3 kinds of pros to create a great remodel. It's a choreography, not a collage, although we make a collage in the beginning. That's what gets us started. But after that's all complete and all that research has been done and all of the things have been selected, it is a beautiful dance that needs to happen. And in my opinion, there's 3 roles that need to overlap. You need to have the designer and the vision with the constraints. So the designer's job is not just to, have good taste, it's the translation. And sometimes this can be you. Sometimes you can pay for some guidance, some consultation to have a designer. I do that in my KBD lounge, where I actually give advice and I guide you through the process. I also can help you do it, but, you need someone to kind of guide you. And, they need to be able to convert your desires into drawings and those drawings into details and those details into decisions that anticipate, so that the trades can anticipate, different codes, sequencing ordering and, maintenance and making sure things are there on time. So, it's a triple effect. But when it's done well, the design is going to elevate not only the beauty of the space, but the flow and how you live. And unfortunately, neuroaesthetics are really kind of like an afterthought, but that's also something that you really need to plan into your remodel as well, and something that you can find a designer to help you with. When I say neuroaesthetics, I mean is it going to serve you? Are the colors right? Is it functioning for your family right? Is it ergonomically right? Is everything in its place? Can you open the drawers perfectly, near the dishwasher? Those kind of things. So the contractor is the number 2 person that needs to have a good overlap when the means meet the method. So a seasoned GC or general contractor doesn't have to build what's on the plan. They can build the plans, feasibility, staging, lead times, labor mixes, permitting, and, the permitting path, and if you need one, and the order of operations. This prevents, any rework of, or re-roughing in or things that got mixed up. And this happens. Unfortunately, it happens. I see a lot of issues with delays of products. That's also a big issue too. You need to not only research the products that you want, but also make sure that you can get them in time. So that also goes back to your designer, but that also comes into play with the third one, which is a project manager. Time, budget, and risk. They're the ones that are supposed to be the gatekeepers for that. And in small projects, the general contractor may wear this shirt and this hat because it can be complex. And they need to be this nice synergy between all 3 of them. So you want to have a dedicated project manager, or, sometimes you can get a design build team. And if you look back to the 7 steps, I break this down for you so that you can really see who are all the parts and pieces, because it's not always the same. Your teams can be different, and you need to choose the one that works best for you, not only for your budget, but for your timeline and for the trust factor. You need someone who owns the critical path, the cash flow, and the communication. And so that the scope of the work doesn't freeze and there's no process, exceptions. The track, you need to make sure that things stay on track because a lot of things have dependencies on each other. You need to make sure weekly, daily, in and out, that they run smoothly with the ups and downs, and then, keeping approvals and inspections moving. So when one of these things are missing, it just marginalizes everything. You just need to get results and you just need to keep things going, and it really helps with the overall expense. But this just comes down to how your parts and pieces are organized. So what the ballroom and the libraries remind us, so you don't pay for this lesson. I have 4 different bullet points for this one. Scope creep is a leadership behavior, not an accident. So big additions, sudden changes, or I won't touch that existing structure until it does, or classic, tell the scope governance is weak, or high visibility projects that, investigates the backlash in your home. It investigates the cascade delays, and you don't want to double spend on things and decide that, if you change the formality with cost and time, and this risk is visible. If we are doing addition, for example, is there things that we haven't considered that might creep into the scope? Like, is the foundation weak? Have we looked into it? Have we had additional things that we have not considered? Like, is the subfloor okay? Like that type of thing. You need to make sure that the leadership of the contractor that you have, or even a seasoned designer, should be able to recognize these things so that it's not an accident in the beginning. Number 2, approvals are paperwork. They're a schedule. So, when you have, neighborhood boards or HOAs, or, you have inspectors or this kind of thing, it doesn't save time, and it's actually takes multiple weeks in addition when you have these things. But if you align them up properly, you won't have this problem. And so you need to make sure that it's in place before the work even starts. So, and just because there's an approval doesn't mean it's going to, align rightly with the products. Like, are the products in? So that comes back to the project manager. But you just need to make sure that you have a good team up front, that all of those things are in place, that you've had all the paperwork signed, you've had all the things submitted, and that these are happening in, the subsequential order that it needs to create this flow so that the path continues. Number 3, PR budgets are not a construction budget. Project manager budgets versus not construction budgets. Announcing, like round numbers, or, like contingencies. These are big red flags. I just need to say, like, oh, there's an allowance for this, an allowance for that. Like, well, what the heck does that mean? That has never made sense to me. Like, as a designer, I always like to make sure that everything is selected prior to starting with the contract, not only so that you can visually see how it looks all together, but so that we are not just like kind of second guessing and then all of a sudden just throwing something together. And then also so that you're not like throwing something together that, is not what you intended. Then all of a sudden it's like triple what you thought it was going to cost. So like the, Obama setter, that was a steady escalation of, not only scope creep, but, just the budgets that they're, the construction budget is not a budget. These are just things to consider, making sure that, back to the whole, contingency thing, you need to make sure that you have like a minimum of 10 to 20%. This is just for the oopsies, like the structural oopsies and things that you just cannot see. Sometimes you can't. And sometimes there's bugs, sometimes there's this, sometimes there's that. But really, a lot of it is avoidable if you do the research properly. But just kind of look out for those things. Number 4, a drawing is kind of typically a hypothesis until you meet logic. So like, let's say you got a drawing done, right? Now, did you make sure that you got all those cabinets to fit in that order? Did you make sure that you got all those cabinets bid? Did you make sure that it can get in on time, like a lead time? For example, when those cabinets are coming in, does your crew have the availability to bring it in when it comes in? How far is it going to push you past your project? Yes, it is important to have your drawing, but you need to make sure that it meets the logistics. Just don't want it to blow past a schedule that you were anticipating. And quite honestly, you do have to be super flexible with a schedule though too, because, things get pushed back, but just making sure that, there's an alignment there. Communication is really the cheapest risk to control things as well. As long as there's someone that's in line, that isn't staying in constant communication with every moving part, whether that's you as a homeowner or you're paying the project manager to do it, you need to make it very clear who's going to be staying in communication with everyone. So that's just like kind of another tip I wanted to throw out there. To give you a little homeowner playbook, here's 6 moves that you need to do to run like a pro when it comes to your remodel, okay? So hire the team. Don't strive for just, a bunch of vendors. You need to have a team. So designer, GC, PM. So designer, general contractor, project manager. They need to be able to integrate together. You need to be able to, put a Gantt chart together. You need to have submittal logs. You need to have, just this cadence and maybe even Excel sheet of all the different materials. And actually, I have that available for your use. Number 2, do a pre-construction reality check. So before you sign this contract and before, you make that investment, you need to make sure that everything is feasible so that you're not kind of like backtracking and then have like all these expenses that you didn't anticipate. So, and also quite honestly, have a pre-construction meeting before they even start the project to make sure that we aren't missing anything. So insist on a decision matrix. So that's kind of like the Gantt chart. But also I do have this form that you can fill out that is a goal setting worksheet. You can email me it. I'll also put it in the show notes below. There's also something called energy mapping that can help with this. But you need to list the functional goals, your pain points, your must-haves, and your nice-to-haves, and just really the things that are constraining you as well. But these all tied together. You don't want to like spend all this money on this beautiful remodel and then all of a sudden realize that like, oh my gosh, like this form is not following the function, So you need to have amazing wins in the beginning, and you don't want to feel like you didn't leave a stone unturned. You don't want to make concessions, that type of stuff. So number 4, put contingencies in writing. So like the cost of 10 to 20% of the schedule, like floating the delays are key milestones. If you never tap into them, you're never going to finish on time. And, being able to finish under budget too. But, that comes back to, I don't like that. I don't like that finish under budget. Like, what does that mean? Like, you should be able to, quote a project based on the whole scope of the work. You should be able to get it done. That also kind of holds whether it's a subcontractor or a general contractor to the whole getting done on time. Because if they're anticipating 6 weeks and it took them 8 weeks, well, that's not your problem. And quite honestly, it should take the time that they think it should. If there's a delay, I mean, sometimes there's things that are unforeseen, but these are all things you kind of need to, think about. Like, is there a contingency? You need to have this in writing. But so take a look at that too. And then number 5, approvals first and demo last. Do not go wild and get everything torn out before your permits are in hand. You've had, special inspections if needed. You need to get HOA approvals. You need to have that in hand. And your project manager should show you the permit. They might tell you have a permit, but you need to show you the permit. Just be like, yeah, cool, that sounds great. When you get it, email it to me, that type of thing. So make sure that you have that in place. Unfortunately, like you do need to manage things really tightly to make sure that it runs. Don't be like over demanding and over, controlling. But, sometimes when you don't have like a in-house design build firm that can run all these things for you, you do have to be the one in charge. So number 6, control the scope the way it pilots the use for checklists. So like basically make sure that you have these checklists in place, you have those Excel sheets in place, and that way you can put what everything costs on the side so there is no, trigger to a change, and that always triggers cost implications. So just make sure that Excel sheet is done. So the takeaway here is that if you remember only one thing, is that hire for integration. As a proven designer to articulate the vision, and the contractor to guarantee the means and the methods, and the project manager to define your time, budget, and intent, when you choose these 3 to operate as one, you don't just get a quote-unquote new space, you get a home that hums. And your cabinets will close right, your grout lines will stay true, the lighting will sing at dusk, and the energy of your space supports the people who will live in it. That's not luck, that's leadership, that's craftsmanship. And that's alignment.
Hey, Sacred listeners, it's Alyssa Martin. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. But guess what? We're going to be at school. That's right. SKOOL. There we're going to have a free community where there's all the tools and checklists and things of that nature to help you get your remodel done in alignment. But guess what? We're also going to have the design lounge where you get one-on-one access to me. So go to school, check out the link in the show notes, and check it out.
I'll see you guys next time on this Here's the Sacred Designer. Thank you.